division. But I think, once again, every fighter has a window. I think his window's passed, which I'm sorry for, because it's a shame, because he's beat some.
I'm not going to sit here and say this and say that, but you know what I come to do. I always come to fight and nothing changed, you know. I always try and find a way to get a victory, and I always try and give my all in the ring, and that's nothing's changed.
You know, it's going to be a hard fight. You got a young, hungry guy. You got the guy who's a little bit older, a little bit more wise, a little bit more mature, and they think they're catching Dillian at the right time.
I think if they keep winning, yeah. I mean, look, Moses is an exceptional talent. You know, he's been in the game a long time. He's got a very, you know, long-standing amateur record and pedigree.
Tony Bellew has never been one to mince words, and when it comes to assessing Dillian Whyte's mindset heading into this showdown with Moses Itauma, the former cruiserweight champion cuts straight through the noise. In Bellew's eyes, Whyte's confidence is not genuine.
I'm a massive fan of Itauma. He's exceptional.
Do you expect him to beat Dillian Whyte, or how do you see that's going?
I think it's over inside 4 rounds. I don't know why I think that, because Dillian hasn't showed. Well, he has shown with signs. The Tete fight was not very good.
Manufactured, fragile, and more about putting on a brave face than true inner belief. Bellew sees through the bravado and insists the cracks in Whyte's armor are already visible to those who know the sport. By contrast, Bellew paints a glowing picture of Moses Itauma. He doesn't see him as just another heavyweight prospect. He sees him as the real.
He's the next in line. I think he's the future of the heavyweight division. I think he's an outstanding talent. I think he's got a good team around him. Ben Davison and Lee Wiley. Wiley is the brains that study everything, and they use what we call video analysis now in boxing. They're the one team that use it.
Real deal, raw, hungry, and brimming with natural ability. Bellew even goes so far as to compare Moses to Oleksandr Usyk, reminding fans that size alone doesn't determine greatness in this game. Skill, composure, and mentality matter just as much, if not more. The message is clear. Moses Itauma is not ordinary, and Bellew believes he represents the future of heavyweight boxing. But Bellew is...
I don't think Moses needs to catch anybody at a certain point in their career or anything like that.
Why is that?
Because I think he's good enough. I think he's plenty good enough. I think he's a generational talent, and I think it's going to take time for everybody to see that. But I think everybody can see that he has the potential.
Not alone in this view. Ben Davison, one of the sport's most respected trainers, has also been vocal in his assessment of Itauma. Known for his measured breakdowns and no-nonsense evaluations, Davison didn't sugarcoat his opinion. He went straight to the point, calling Moses a generational talent. In Davison,
he's got a big task ahead of him, you know, on Saturday. So he has to deliver. You know, he's fighting a young lion, a young buck, you know, so we'll see what happens, or somebody's gonna go to jail.
Estimation, Itauma doesn't need smoke and mirrors, timing tricks, or to be spoon-fed opponents while waiting for the right moment. In his words, Moses is already good enough to take on anyone in the division. The contrast with Whyte could not be more striking. Where Whyte is leaning on fading experience and an increasingly fragile reputation, Moses is climbing fast, powered by youth, momentum, and an aura that screams, next big star. Derek Chisora, never shy to call it how he sees it, echoed similar sentiment. He dismissed the idea that Itauma was under any real pressure in this fight. In fact, Chisora flipped the narrative. In his view, all the weight is on Whyte's shoulders. Moses, he said bluntly, is the young lion. And why?
If you can get guys out in the first and second round, then why not? Like, if anyone was to see how I train in camp, like for this fight, I've done 1 6-rounder, 2 6-rounders, sorry, 2 8-rounds, and the rest have been 10s.
Whyte is stepping into very dangerous territory. If Whyte slips up, if he leaves the tiniest opening, Moses will pounce and punish him mercilessly. For Chisora, this isn't hype. It isn't a manufactured storyline for fans. This is a genuine test of survival, and Whyte is the one fighting to keep his career alive. What sets Moses apart is his mindset. He doesn't carry the recklessness or desperation of a young fighter chasing quick knockouts to make a statement. Instead, his confidence is calm, almost chilling. He has repeatedly said that he doesn't care if the knockout comes in the first round or the 10th. His job is to deliver damage, and he trusts in his preparation to go the distance if necessary. That's the mindset of a fighter with the mentality of a future champion. Moses isn't hunting shortcuts. He's preparing for war. Whyte, on the other hand, carries the scars.
I think if they keep winning, yeah. I mean, look, Moses is an exceptional talent. You know, he's been in the game a long time. He's got a very, you know, long-standing amateur record and pedigree.
Of multiple stoppage defeats. Time and again, when the heat has turned up in the ring, he's cracked. That's why many in the boxing world label his confidence as fake. It simply can't stand up against the grounded belief of a fighter like Itauma, who isn't relying on hope or toughness alone. He's relying on skill, stamina, and composure, qualities Whyte has increasingly lacked as the years have worn him down. Even Eddie Hearn, a man known for promoting and hyping fighters, speaks about Moses Itauma in a way that goes beyond typical promoter rhetoric. Hearn doesn't sound like he's selling tickets or building a prospect. He sounds like a man genuinely in awe of the young heavyweight's potential. Hearn has pointed to Itauma's amateur pedigree, his advanced skill set for his age, and his already visible signs of greatness. These are things you can't fake. Hearn and
he's very explosive, so time will tell. But it could be a quick night for Moses Itauma, or it could be a banana skin where he's in for a war and he could get dragged into deep water. Either way, it's good for Itauma because we're going to see what he's all about, you know. Or is he going to have another quick night? We have to see. Or Dillian Whyte could think to himself, yeah, he could be kryptonite for Itauma because he is.
And they separate Moses from nearly every other young fighter in the game today. Whyte has always relied on ruggedness, grit, and experience from past wars, but Hearn's comments underscore how limited that approach becomes once the miles pile up. Moses, meanwhile, isn't just being flashy or explosive for highlight reels. He's building a style, a reputation, and a foundation designed to last. That's why Hearn calls him exceptional. It's not about hype. It's about longevity. Still, not everyone is convinced this will be a simple walkover. Peter Fury offered a more balanced, realistic take. Fury acknowledged that Itauma could very well blow Whyte out early, making a devastating statement about his power and ruthlessness. But he also knows
37 years old, and with that inactivity coming up against, you know, an active young fighter, a southpaw who's knocked everybody out really, all barring one. These are the questions. How good is Moses Itauma? Because, to be honest, his opposition up to this point, although he starched them all.
Noted the possibility that Whyte could force Moses into a deeper fight, one where his inexperience is tested for the first time, and that, Fury argued, is what makes this matchup so intriguing. For Itauma, there is no downside. If he wins quickly, it proves his power is genuine. If it becomes a war, he gains invaluable experience against a man who has seen it all. Still, Fury admitted the idea of Whyte being kryptonite for Itauma feels more like wishful thinking than reality. Whyte's vulnerabilities have been brutally exposed before, and while his experience is real, it is increasingly outweighed by inactivity and the toll of past wars. Moses, by contrast, is fresh, fearless, and hungry. No matter how the fight unfolds, Fury believes the outcome benefits Moses more than Whyte. Andy Lee broke it down even more bluntly. For him, this fight is about one thing: discovering just how good Moses Itauma really is.
The right step up at the right time for Moses to put himself amongst those top 10 heavyweights in the world. But it could also be a mistake. If it goes, I think, my opinion, if it gets past the fourth round, then it's a real fight. Then you'll see what Moses is made of, and you'll see how much Dillian has left.
Lee pointed to Whyte's inactivity as a glaring weakness and contrasted it with Moses' destructive momentum, which has seen him blow away nearly every opponent. To Lee, this isn't a matchup of equals. It's a young southpaw wrecking ball against a fading veteran trying to squeeze the last out of a bruised career. Lee didn't completely dismiss Whyte, but he was honest about the glaring gap between them. Whyte's inactivity and the mileage on his body are simply too much to ignore. And while some question whether Itauma has been tested enough, Lee argues that his dominance to this point actually proves his ceiling is sky high. This, he said, is the perfect step at the perfect time. Moses doesn't need protection, nor does he need rushing. He needs exactly this, a proving ground against a fading but still recognizable name in the heavyweight division. Lee added an interesting caveat. We haven't seen Itauma push deep into a fight yet. That isn't a criticism, but it raises the question of what happens if Whyte...
I think I make Itauma the favourite just because Dillian Whyte hasn't boxed in forever. Dillian Whyte's not been active at Itauma, so I make Itauma the favourite based on that, but Dillian Whyte's experience, he can punch. No result would surprise me, but I would go...
He drags him beyond 4 rounds. Theoretically, Whyte's experience could come into play there, but the reality Lee implied is that it's just as much a test of Whyte's survival as it is of Moses's endurance. And given momentum, age, and hunger, Lee made it clear he's backing Moses to rise. Dave Allen, never one to overcomplicate things, kept his assessment straightforward. He made Moses the favorite, and even though he admitted no result in boxing would surprise him, he leaned firmly toward Itauma. Allen acknowledged Whyte's experience, but couldn't overlook Moses's freshness, power, and sheer talent. To Allen, Whyte simply has too many miles on the clock, too many knockdowns and stoppages to his name. Moses, on the other hand, embodies the new wave energy, explosiveness, and the aura of inevitability. Allen's words mirror what many fighters and fans are thinking. Whyte could land something, he could pull out veteran tricks, but the odds are heavily stacked against him. The fact that so many inside the sport, people who have lived, fought, and...
He's got to go to the deep waters, unless somebody slips up and get caught early. But, we got to get him into the deep waters. That's the key.
Trained at the highest level, see the 19-year-old as the favorite speaks volumes. Buddy McGirt, however, pointed out the one narrow path to victory that Whyte may have. In his view, Whyte's only real chance is to drag Moses into deep waters. Early on, McGirt admitted Moses is simply too sharp, too explosive, and too dangerous. But if Whyte can somehow stretch him into later rounds, he might test the young man in ways he's never experienced. Still, McGirt conceded this is more of a hope than a genuine strategy. Moses has proven time and again that he prepares for long fights, trains for 10 hard rounds, and doesn't rely solely on early knockouts. Meanwhile, Whyte has often been the one to fade late, struggling under sustained pressure. What is supposed to be an advantage for Whyte could, in reality, expose his own vulnerabilities. Finally, Shannon Briggs added his trademark raw energy to the debate. Let's go, champ. Aside, Briggs made a fair point. He acknowledged Moses' youth and power, but reminded everyone that Whyte has been there and done it against some of the biggest names in the division. Whyte is no pushover, Briggs stressed. But then he framed the match
strong. We're going to see if he can beat Dillian Whyte, though. Dillian Whyte ain't no pushover. And I think Dillian going to know that, you know what I'm saying? We're going to find out if he can really crack like they say he is. But I'm hearing things that he's been dropped in the ring, in the gym and stuff like that. But that's okay too, because I took a couple spills, little slips in the ring, in the gym. That's okay, but we're going to see this
matchup in a way that set the stage perfectly. This is a clash of eras. The young lion against the wounded veteran. Briggs knows that if Moses blows Whyte away, all the lingering doubts vanish and his reputation skyrockets. But if Moses struggles, critics will circle. Briggs' words, though, carried an underlying inevitability. He emphasized what makes Moses so dangerous: youth, power, fearlessness, qualities that Whyte, no matter how experienced, can never get back. And that's the real story here. This isn't just another fight, it's a turning point. If Moses Itauma delivers, he doesn't just beat Dillian Whyte. He sends a message that the old guard is done, and a new era is here. A win pushes him straight into the conversation with the world's elite heavyweights. On the other hand, if Whyte shocks the world, it breathes life back into a career many thought was finished, proving grit and experience can still trump youth. It's more than physical, it's a mental war. Moses is calm, fearless, and hungry. Whyte hides behind bravado that Tony Bellew and others have already labeled fake. The question is simple. Who wants it more? The young lion clawing his way to the throne, or the veteran clinging desperately to what little he has left? So fight fans, where do you stand? Is Moses Itauma about to rise as the new king of the heavyweights? Or does Dillian Whyte have one last upset left in him?